In the year 2011, what is left to say about Final Fantasy VII? Nothing! Good night, folks! But what about the demo that came with Tobal number 1? In September of 1996, Squaresoft released Tobal number 1, a 3D fighting game developed by Dream Factory, who would go on to release Air Guys, which is not to be confused with the also strangely named Einhinder, and The Bouncer for the PS2. Fun fact, Tobal number 1 was Square's debut title on the PS1, and The Bouncer was Square's debut title on the PS2. But anyway, Tobal number 1 is a coveted collector's item for Final Fantasy fans because it came with an early demo for the seminal classic Final Fantasy VII, which would be released a year later in September 1997. The demo runs through Avalanche's attack on the first Mako reactor, and though we all know this is only a fraction of the game, you gotta remember how groundbreaking this was back from '96. FF7 was an incredibly ambitious game for its time and an enormous undertaking for Square. It shouldn't be surprising that there are many differences between this demo and the final game. So many, in fact, I thought I'd make a video about it. I know there are some weird people out there that actually want to see a happy nerd review of Final Fantasy VII. Well, guess what? You people don't understand the point of the HVGN. This is as close as you're ever going to get to a review of FF7. As for Tobal number 1, right now I'm on the fence about reviewing it. It's pretty fun, but I need to immerse myself in PS1 era fighting games again so I can put the game in proper context. So don't get too excited about an HVGN review just yet. And because this might be an issue for like the 8 of you out there that haven't played FF7, one last thing about spoilers. This demo of course only covers the very beginning, so this video won't spoil anything. And I'm sure at least one huge twist has already been spoiled for you. Okay, let's do this. This is the Tobal number 1 Final Fantasy VII demo. First off, the disc also features trailers for Final Fantasy Tactics, Bushido Blade, and Saga Frontier. It's nothing you can't find on YouTube these days. You have the option to go over the controls before jumping in, and on that screen, you'll notice a really high-quality looking Cloud and Barret. They don't look this smooth in the demo, so it's pretty cool to see our heroes looking a little sharper. Here's our first deleted portion of the final game. In the demo, the L1 and R1 buttons rotate your character. It's a completely useless move. I can see why they cut it out. The song that plays at the menu also appears in the demos packaged with Brave Fencer Musashi and Vagrant Story. Alright, there's nothing more to talk about here, so let's move on to the actual demo. The demo starts like the game does, with a view of the stars revealed to be a fractured energy pipe. But we get a little backstory to give first-time players some context. Note that here, the main character is already referred to as Cloud. The CG opening is otherwise exactly like it appears in the final game. Which, by the way, is unlike the FF8 demo, where a cinema was actually altered in the demo. The train comes to a stop and we meet our heroes. You'll notice right away that you can't pause or access the menu in this demo. If you gotta do any healing, you're doing it during a fight. The select button doesn't do anything either, so you can't turn on pointers. Hey, but with the L1 and R1 buttons, you can do a cool figure 8! The 2 guys that Jesse and Biggs knocked out aren't carrying potions in the demo, so head down the platform. You'll be bum rushed by some guards who in the demo are wearing black instead of blue. Okay, our first fight, and holy crap, where do I start? Well, probably the biggest change in the entire demo is that Aeris is in your party. But wait, how did she get with Cloud on the train? She's a few blocks away selling her flowers. We just saw her. Now, before some of you hardcore fans get excited, you should know she, of course, never appears outside of battle or is ever acknowledged by anyone. The demo ends before you would get that far, but she definitely would have had some explaining to do later on. Huh? What? No, listen, lady. Drop that innocent flower girl act. Just how long have you been doing jobs with Avalanche? Anyway, for the battles, she's armed to the teeth with spells and summons. For some reason, she has Cure 3, which with its 3,000 healing power is complete overkill. Though, at 40 MP to cast, it's a measure less than it was in the full game, where it was 64 MP. She also has Ice 2, which at 8 MP is again way less here than in the final game. Ice 2 looks completely different here in the demo. Actually, it looks unfinished. However, Aeris' only summon, Leviathan, isn't any different. Leviathan, by the way, costs almost half as much to cast here in the demo. Aeris is naturally your dedicated healer for this demo, so she'll be using most of your ethers, which replenish a mere 50 MP, instead of the final game's more generous 100 MP. Let's move on to Cloud. First off, his name is not ex-soldier during any point in this demo. At this point in the full game, you haven't been introduced to Cloud yet, nor have you had a chance to name him. He also looks a little different on the battle screen. It might be hard to tell here, but the leather straps around his shoulder are a lighter brown in the demo, and the blade of his sword is shaped differently. It's also missing those holes down by the handle. Cloud has more spells in this demo. He now has Bolt 2 instead of just Bolt 1. Just like with Aeris's Ice 2, Bolt 2 is less to cast here than in the final game. When casting Bolt 1, a small menu pops up, giving you the option to strike all enemies. I kinda like this system, but maybe Square thought it made things too cluttered and went with the less obvious L1 method. Finally, we come to Barret, who, for starters, shouldn't be in your party because he just ran off ahead of you. Jeez, first Aeris is in 2 places, now Barret is too. What are they, cloning people around here? Barret looks much different here than in the full game. His vest is tan instead of dark green, and the sleeves aren't tattered, which do nothing to hide his boxy, pixelated shoulders. His pants are also a bit lighter, and I think his boots are bigger too. Like the others, he has Magic 2, Fire 2, and Demi. In the finished game, though, he doesn't have any magic for this part. There are a ton of other things to talk about here, so we'll come back to the fights in a bit. When things wrap up, you'll notice your party starts with 123 GP instead of 240 gil. For those who don't know, up until Final Fantasy VI, the currency for North American Final Fantasies was GP, which I'm sure most of us thought meant gold points. Final Fantasy VII was the first game to use this signature currency in America. When you meet the members of Avalanche, you'll notice you still can't talk to Wedge, but you also clip right through him. When Biggs and Jesse start talking to you, they use soldier's literal meaning. It sounds like they're speaking broken English. Cloud's name is stated in the intro, so when Biggs asks you for your name, you aren't given the option to change it. And this is a good time to point out what a shitty translation this demo has. I told you all not to move around all together. The final game didn't have the best translation either, but yikes. The spacing for the dialogue boxes is all over the place too. Commas are placed without proper spacing, while some sentences have unnecessary double spacing. Let me just say the translation for this demo is awful, and if I point out all the mistakes, we'll be here a long time. But here's something interesting. Barret refers to the reactor as the North Maroko plant, which probably borrows straight from Japanese, instead of the North Mako reactor, but later he refers to the planet's energy as simply Mako energy. When the gate is opened, Barret doesn't give you any helpful info about the controls, nor are you given the chance to change his name. He only says he doesn't trust you and runs towards the reactor. On the way to the reactor, you won't be able to talk to Biggs, Wedge, or Jesse, but you'll clip right through them if you try. Outside of the reactor, the door Wedge stands in front of is open for some reason. Once you enter the reactor, Barret materializes from Cloud's pocket instead of already waiting in the lobby. Barret and Cloud's exchange is much shorter here. Barret's motivation for sticking with Cloud is much clearer in the full game. Before you take the elevator down to the bowels of the reactor, you'll notice the chest that holds a phoenix down is missing, and that brings up a good point. There's absolutely no way to bring back a dead party member in this demo. Despite the fact you are levels 9 and 10, the battles are pretty tough. If you get careless, it's not that hard to lose a party member. And speaking of the battles, there's still plenty to talk about, so let's head back in. There are a couple subtle differences in the audio. First off, the sound effect for casting a spell is different. And now that we're actually in the reactor, the proper battle music plays during fights. The track is the same, but there's small differences to the mix. The version heard in the demo has a bit more action on the drums. For example, here, the tom hits are more audible during this drum fill. And what sounds like brush hits on the snare on the left channel is more audible too. The biggest difference in the demo is the absence of the classic Final Fantasy fanfare. Jeez, it's like I'm not even playing a Final Fantasy game without... there we go. And speaking of the fanfare, Cloud's victory pose is unfinished in the demo. When Cloud moves his sword behind his back, it's a lot smoother in the finished game. Leveling up is completely out of the question in the demo. It would take way too long. And apparently it would be a waste of your time because you can't level up anyway. I had to research that because I couldn't be bothered to spend hours grinding the same enemies to find out myself. We're still not finished with the battles, but let's head back to the reactor for now. In the elevator, the whole panel is blinking for some reason. Oh, Square, it's an elevator. You push the arrows to make it go. I know how it works. When Barret materializes from Cloud's pockets and starts talking to you, I noticed that Cloud's eyes are really close together. I went back and checked this back at the train, and yes, Cloud's eyes are definitely closer together in the demo. It looks very strange. At the bottom of the stairs, there's a door that opens up in the full game. This door is absent in the demo, but I always thought it was strange how Jessie still clips right through the damn thing in the final game. On the next screen, Jessie doesn't tell you how to jump or climb ladders. She's already on her way. She doesn't tell you because you don't need to push O to jump or climb ladders. Further down, Jessie is standing at the base of this ladder instead of over here. If you try to walk up and talk to her, you'll just snap onto the ladder. In the demo, there's an extra girder that extends to the right of frame. It was probably removed in the final game because it blocked the view of this ladder. The potion lying on the ground here is absent. Okay, we're nearing the end of the demo. Naturally, the save point is missing here, and so is the restore materia. When it's time to set the bomb, Barret insists Cloud set it, but we're missing that piece of foreshadowing dialogue here. This is where the boss battle starts, so let's head back into combat one last time. In the demo, you face a completely different roster of enemies. The biggest difference is this boss, which is a giant Sweepers instead of the Guard Scorpion. In the final game, Sweeper are a normal enemy, though they are only found on this final platform. In the demo, you also fight security troops, Hedgehog Pie, combatants, Dean Glow, and Guard Hounds. These are all literal pronunciations. The demo has trouble distinguishing between plurals and singulars. In the final game, a security troops is an NP, and a combatants is a grunt. Hedgehog Pie is still Hedgehog Pie, and Dean Glow are still Dean Glow, but don't normally appear this early in the game. The fight with the Sweepers in the demo can last quite a bit longer than the Guard Scorpions, since it's a bit tougher. It was at this point I finally noticed that attack is now fight, and limit is now special. And speaking of limits, there are a few changes here too. Barret's limit is called Heavy Shot instead of Big Shot. Cloud at this point typically only has Braver, but now he has Cross Slash too. Performing Braver in the demo also paralyzes enemies, something that did not happen in the full game. Okay, we've defeated the boss, time to hightail it out of here. You have 3 minutes to escape instead of 10, which sounds unfair, but the clock stops during battles. It's more than enough time. However, there isn't a timer on the screen, you're just reminded when you have 2 minutes, 1 minute, or 30 seconds left. You'll find Jessie up on that extra girder, and Biggs lying down at the bottom of the stairs by the elevator. Speak with him and he'll immediately just pop up, explaining that he let his guard down. Well, why would security just leave him there? Wouldn't they have killed him or arrested him or something? Last we saw him, he was hanging out upstairs in the lobby. Never mind the fact he didn't come down the elevator with Jessie and Barret. What was he doing down here anyway? Make your way out of the reactor, and just as it explodes, the demo abruptly ends, claiming that FF7 would come out in December. In reality, FF7 came out in late January in Japan, but we can probably all assume that extra month was worth the wait. And that is the Tobal #1 FF7 demo. FF7 kicked off what was probably the golden years for Squaresoft. Some of their best and most eclectic work was produced during this era. Parasite Eve, Einhander, Vagrant Story, Bushido Blade, Brave Fencer Musashi, Xenogears, Threads of Fate, Chrono Cross. It was not only a very prolific time for Square, but also a lucrative one. One way Square was able to have such a wide library was through heavy promotion from demo discs. Square's games appeared on a number of demo discs, like the ones packaged with the official PlayStation magazine and Disc 1 of the Pizza Hut demos. But more noteworthy and collectible are the demo discs packaged with Squaresoft games. There were 5 released in America. Tobal #1, as you know, had the Final Fantasy VII Interactive Sample CD. Parasite Eve had the 1998 Collector's CD Volume 1. Brave Fencer Musashi had the 1998 Collector's CD Volume 2, which was actually just a playable demo of FF8. Vagrant Story had the 2000 Collector's CD Volume 3, despite the fact it says Volume 1 on the menu screen. And the 5th was a standalone disc, Squaresoft on PlayStation Collector's CD, which despite its cover does not feature a playable demo of FF7, though you can play Einhander. It's not likely the demo that came with the Japanese version of Tobal #1 was much different from this build. The only thing that I can confirm is it came with a trailer called Final Fantasy 64. It's a common misconception that this is a very early build of FF7, but it's actually a tech demo featuring characters from FF6, showcasing what FF7 would have looked like if Square had not moved from the N64 to Sony's CD-based PlayStation. This is one reason why on the back of the box, FF7 boasts it's only on PlayStation. While I certainly don't have anything against FF7, it's not my favorite Final Fantasy game. My heart belongs to Part 6. But this demo is a must-have for all the FF7 superfans out there, because even though I tried my best, there's definitely some stuff I missed. This disc can be pricey, but it's a heck of a deal. It even comes with a free fighting game that's pretty good. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed getting super nerdy on some Final Fantasy VII. Thanks for watching.